Back in February, my wife and I enjoyed a trip to Vegas gifted by my mother-in-law. My MIL joined us and brought some friends. All was well. One of the nights we were there, my wife, MIL, and her friends decided they were going to go to a club in the hotel and we guys were going to go play craps. I got tired and decided to head back to the room. I showered and patiently waited for my wife to return to the room after receiving some detailed texts about what she wanted to do to me that night. She arrived stumbling and was clearly way too drunk for any kind of activity, so I undressed her and got her into bed. I plugged her phone in and was about to go to bed when her phone started blowing up from one of her friends. I answered her phone and they informed me she had left her credit card at the bar. I thanked her for telling me and ended the call. I swamped up as I usually do to close the app one I'm using, and her phone displayed a text conversation that wasn't in the regular iMessage app, a Telegram. Caught my eye and I thought it was strange. I opened it and discovered it was a text between her and one of her colleagues. For context, back in July of 2021, we moved states 3 hours away as my wife kept asking for me to get a transfer with my job. Finally, a transfer was granted and we moved from our old town to a new state. My wife was a principal of an elementary school there, and the male colleague who was texting her is still a principal there. There were photos shared of her in the sexy outfit she wore that night. He told her how hot she looked and the last message was "Love you, baby." I didn't know what to do. I went to her photos and saw she had shared many photos with him. Very intimate photos. I saved all of the photos and sent them to my Google Drive account. I saved all the texts and sent screenshots to my account as well. I then went on to FB Messenger to see what else she has been up to. I saw that one of her ex-boyfriends was expressing how much he missed her and how he should have married her and not me. I then went and deleted all the screenshots from the recently deleted photos folder, making sure she did not know I had screenshotted all of these things. I stayed up all night pacing as she slept drunk. I had his phone number from her phone. I saved it and screenshotted it in the Telegram app to prove it was his number in the messages. I found his address. I found his wife's name and her phone number. I found her on social media. I was ready to blow this all up, but I didn't. I love my wife and I decided to let her explain herself before I blasted them to his wife. I packed my bags and was ready to change my ticket and fly out. But again, I love my wife and this would have caused her great embarrassment if I were to be gone early in the trip, leaving her to explain to her mom and friends where I was and what happened. So again, I stayed put. I also knew that if I left there would be no room for reconciliation. By this time it was about 6 to 7 a.m. I took her phone and went downstairs to the little coffee shop and breakfast place in the hotel. I just helped myself through all of her stuff. I checked the phone statement on my phone and found out how long this had been going on. Just over a year. The first text came through in December 2020, and then they stopped in December 2021, but clearly they continued talking through the app until February 2022. During all the vacations, dates, and fun little things we did together, I could only assume she was texting him with me right next to. I bought her a coffee, an orange juice, a Red Bull, and a bottle of water so she could sober up when she woke up because we weren't going anywhere. I went back to the room and plugged her phone in. I had everything. I had the idea to log into the Telegram app they were using to talk on my phone's web browser so I could see all of the messages between them. I sat on the bed next to her sad, angry, heartbroken, and just in disbelief. Finally, at about 11 o'clock she started stirring. She told me to come to lie with her, but I just went and sat next to her. She immediately knew something was wrong when I got into bed with her. I guess you could just feel it. She immediately jumped up and turned to me and asked me what was wrong before I had even said a word. All I said was, "Who is Greg?" She immediately got defensive and sighed. She asked why I would go through her phone like that. I told her what had happened and that I wasn't snooping through her phone. I explained that someone had called and I saw it. She jumped up and grabbed her phone and went to the bathroom. I opened the app and saw she had sent him a message. I left the app open last night, saw it, then she deleted it. She deleted all of the messages so they disappeared in my web browser as well, but I already had them saved. He replied, "Oh no, am I in trouble?" I couldn't help but laugh. This guy was 41 years old. Principal. Asking if he was in trouble. I found it funny that he did not give a crap to ask how she was. He wasn't worried if I was angry. He wasn't worried if she was okay. She came out of the bathroom and I showed her my phone and said, You're really gonna go text him right now?" She started crying and I began asking all the questions I wanted to be answered. Some questions I knew the answers to. Some questions I did not. I asked if she had sex with him. I asked how long it had been going on. I asked if he had ever been in my bed or in my home. I asked if she loved him. The answer to these questions was no, no, no. I wanted to go to his house. I wanted to burn it down. I wanted to do physical harm to him, but I have a precious daughter and a very good job that requires a security clearance. I finally lost the urge to confront him or hurt him, but I still have the urge to let his wife know. The problem is my wife does not want me to because of her embarrassment, shame, and guilt. But I wonder if it is that or me finding out something she didn't tell me or lie to me about. Who knows, but I want AP's wife to know. She deserves to know. I wanted to post his and her phone hashtag here that night, but I thought that may get me banned as well as into some civil trouble. We have very close friends there. Some of our friends' kids still visit us in our new state and our new home. Some friends are still principals there or work in the school system in the small town. AP's wife does as well, so there are small circles that intersect. Recently, going back through the cell phone records, I remembered that we had attended a marriage conference in February 2021. Sure enough, there was his number on the same dates as the conference. He actually attended the same marriage conference with his wife. It just got worse, it seemed. I also saw that she talked with him on the phone on her birthday, August 2021, while I was arranging a surprise party. She was on the phone for 45 minutes. I practically had to drag her to dinner that night with about 40 people waiting to surprise her. When she saw all the people, she cried and told me she loved me so much that night. I had no idea. I went through my phone and deleted every picture from December 2020 to February 2022 that was intimate, hugging or kissing, or any sexy photos she had sent me or photos of us together on some random trip we had taken. I couldn't delete the pictures of my daughter at the same time, but they make me sad knowing what I know now, that she was likely talking to him and coming home to me. Update. She removed the lock from her phone. She has given me full access to her phone. I told her I wanted couples therapy. I wanted her to go to individual therapy. She refused couples therapy but went to individual therapy. I asked again for couples therapy and she refused again. I finally told her that she did not get to dictate how this went. She either went to couples therapy or left. I told her I would not move out. She could move out. My daughter would stay with me as I would be in the house, and she needed to stay in the environment that she knew she was livid. She said that I would kick her out and keep our daughter from her. I said I would never keep her from her mom, but I would have full custody and she could see her every other weekend. She finally agreed. She cried. She apologized. She explained most of it to me, but it's only been 5 months and I keep getting questions in my head and I ask them. She gets so upset when I bring it up. I told her again that I was sorry that my grief was inconvenient to her happiness. I told her she did not get to just move on like she wanted to. She just thinks if we don't talk about it, it will disappear and we will be fine. I started going to the gym. I'm looking better. She has noticed other women starting to give me attention. Good-looking, fit women. She admitted she made a huge mistake and she messed up so badly. She is working on fixing things. I still get depressed, but we are working through it. I still want to tell the wife, but I don't want to risk the progress we have made this far. My therapist asked if that would make my situation any better and what the repercussions would be. So here we are. I guess I'm just letting you guys know it's possible. I see so many posts. How do I move on? What do I do? Is it possible? It is, but it still sucks. I still wonder. I logged into the Telegram account recently and saw he either blocked her or deleted his account. So there is that. 1 foot at a time. OP, are you working under the premise that your wife never got physical with this man while married to you? If so, you seem to be in denial when there is the type of dialogue between them that includes the words "love you baby." There is always a chance that your wife has learned her lesson, but highly doubtful. You should expect a repeat performance somewhere down the line. Are you trying to save her embarrassment, or are you trying to save yourself embarrassment? You have nothing to be embarrassed about, and if you actually do undertake reconciliation, you need to inform everyone in your family and friend group. Lastly, you humanely have a right to inform this guy's wife of what happened. Do the right thing, bro. She deserves to know, and to not tell her because you risk a failed reconciliation is simply messed up. I wish you the best of luck. OP. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If there is a story you would like to share, I was going to post my story on Reddit, but after reading over some of the comments, Reddit is full of assholes. YouTube recommended one of Tony's videos, and it just so happened that the post it thanked Tony for allowing him to share his story. Now I am sharing mine. I have to honestly say, I didn't know nurses had this type of reputation. Well, my wife and I have been married for 6 years, and she is 28 and I am 29. We delayed having kids because she wanted to focus on a career as a nurse. After graduating college, she went and got her nursing degree. She landed a spot at the hospital working 12-hour shifts, about 3 to 4 days a week. Meanwhile, I was slowly taking over my dad's lawn business. My wife was a hustler. When she wasn't working at the hospital, she had a little side hustle of running errands for people. She advertised on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and she did pretty well at it. Between her nursing job and her side hustle, she was making about $80,000 per year after about the second year. But soon after, she had a burning desire to get out of nursing to run her errand business full time. It was really taking off. Well, one week she had some vacation time from the hospital and she made the decision to do her side hustle for a week straight. That turned out to be a crazy experiment. She made more money that week than she made last month working at the hospital. So as time goes by, everything is going well. Bills are being paid with no issues. We get along, we travel a little bit more about our third year being married. I started to notice a slight shift in her behavior towards me. She started to talk down to me a little. I didn't understand it, but came to realize that maybe she was just stressed from her job at the hospital and her business. I didn't put too much thought into it, but one day she had an outburst. Don't know what set her off, but I cursed her out and told her to stop talking to me like that. We were at odds with each other for a few days after I really couldn't understand her behavior. I wasn't the type of man to stay mad at my wife if we got into an argument or some type of disagreement, but my wife was the opposite. Her communication skills with me, her husband was in the toilet, but everyone else amazing. And this was the start of our dead bedroom for the first 3 years. Our sex life was on point. I initiated, she was ready, and vice versa. But now I can't even get her to give me a kiss. Good night. Something we have always done. Well, one night I made plans to take her out to dinner. I sent a text like 3 hours before she was supposed to end their shift at the hospital, but she didn't respond. I called and it went to voicemail about 3 hours later. She responds. And her response was, I am still working. That was it. No, I will text you later or I will call you later. Nothing. At this point, I was at my wit's end. I didn't know where to turn, so I called a good friend of mine and told him what was happening. He said, it sounded like she may be stressed a little or maybe even distracted. I asked him what he meant by distracted. He said, women don't all of a sudden, just out of the blue, stop interacting with their partner. Something is going on with her. Something or someone may have her stressed or distracted. So after that conversation, I really tried to talk to her, but it just seemed she didn't have the desire to talk to me no matter what I tried. Well, things came to a head when she was supposed to get off work at around 8 p.m. I reached out to her via text and I called her, but she didn't respond at about 2:47 in the morning. She comes strolling in drunk off her ass. I let her have it. Then I went back to bed. She slept in the other room, reeking of alcohol. The next morning, she comes strolling into our bedroom, apologizing, starts messing with me, and I give in and we were intimate. I thought to myself it was about time, but I still had this weird feeling in my gut that something was going on with her. Strangely enough, this behavior of hers continued for about a month. Then it shifted again, and I was done after that. I started paying closer attention to her. And the most surprising thing is her phone uses didn't increase more than it already had. I mean, she was talking to people from Facebook and Craigslist mostly, but I didn't see her on her phone late into the night. Whenever she put her phone on the nightstand, she usually didn't pick it back up until the next day. Fast forward a few days and she pulls the coming in late crap again. And she was drunk, but kept my cool this time. And then she tried to initiate sex. I turned her away. I went to work the next day and did some research on how I can track her movements. So I came up with the idea of using a GPS tracker so I can see what she is up to when she leaves work. Well, a few weeks after installing the GPS tracker, I found out what she was doing. She would leave work, then travel to a commercial building. It looked as if they had many, many offices and my wife had office space in this building. I thought, what the hell does she need office space for? Why is she keeping this from me? Anyway, she was cheating on me. That's why she was keeping it from me. Let me tell you how in the back of the building, there was a door and one window to each one of the offices. I saw a man go in her office from the back 4 different times. One time he came out of the office and they kissed. And that particular night I was dressed in black, wearing a hoodie. I got close enough to see there was a camera and a computer and I had a hard time seeing. Lo and behold, I squinted hard enough and could see she was doing OnlyFans. I was shocked. Never would have guessed she would do OnlyFans. She was putting her clothes back on. And when she moved away to the side, I took photos of her computer screen, but I wasn't going to say anything to her. Over the next few nights, I staked out the office again. This time, making sure to get pictures and video of this guy, walking into the back of her office and kissing her upon leaving. Well, I went to work one day after staking out her secret office. I showed my dad what I uncovered and told him I was filing for divorce. And I asked him not to say anything to anyone. My dad gave me 100% support and told me to do what was best for me. And I told him right then and there, divorce is the only option for me. Filing for divorce was probably the most emotionally charged thing I have ever done in my life, but it had to be done. Over a few weeks, I opened up a few bank accounts and started moving out of the house we were renting without telling my wife anything. At this point, I stopped following her. I didn't need to, I had what I needed. I went to see an attorney and told them to file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. I gave him the pictures I had of my wife kissing this guy at the back of her office. It's been a month since I uncovered her infidelity and her doing OnlyFans. I still haven't said anything, kept on acting like a husband who still loved his wife, but I never slipped up and had sex with her. If I did, the courts could take that as forgiving her. I wasn't going to do that. I contacted the attorney and asked him if there was any way I and the process server can plan where I can meet him at the same time he is serving my wife the divorce papers. He indicated that it was possible. So I began keeping tabs on my phone daily to make sure I can meet the process server at the same time he is serving my wife. Well, about 3 weeks later, that day came. The process service sent me a text to let me know he was headed to the address. I gave the attorney, it was after 9 p.m. And that's what time she usually got to her so-called secret office. The commercial area was well lit. When he knocked on the door, my soon-to-be ex-wife came out. She took the envelope. When she did, she looked up and then I waved at her and blew her a kiss. The process server walked away, and my wife was just standing there in shock. I got in my car and left. She was still standing there. That night I went back to the house and got the rest of my things, man. She blew my phone up. I never returned any of her calls or text messages. It hurt so bad. But I have to try to not think about it. My dad and my friends on my support. And yes, I told them everything and they were in shock as well. On the day of the divorce hearing, my wife just sat there in tears. By this time I had grown a little indifferent towards her. I didn't care anymore. I just wanted this to be over. She didn't try for anything. She made enough money to support herself. The judge granted the divorce on the basis of infidelity. And that was that. On my way out of the courtroom, my ex-wife was crying so uncontrollably. The bailiff asked her if she was okay. We ended up walking out of the courtroom damn near neck and neck. Then out of nowhere, she hugged me. She was still crying. I had to hold back my tears because I love this woman and she broke my heart. I hugged her back and then told her to take care of herself and walked away. I was living with my dad temporarily until I could afford a place on my own. I ended up going to therapy for a few months and that helped. Our lawn business is booming. We picked up a few new contracts and I am still healing from the divorce. It's been 2 months and my ex-wife sends me a text every single day. And in 2 months, I have not responded to either one of them. I would imagine I would need to change my number at some point. My ex-wife came by my dad's shop one day and dropped off a card. I wasn't there, but she asked my dad if he wouldn't mind giving it to me. I haven't opened. My wife, 27, took a yoga and meditation class. She really enjoyed it, but not as much as I, 31, did. Her body got extremely toned and tempting, and I wasn't the only one that was tempted. I wish I would have gone with her or something, but I got off work too late. Soon my wife started coming home and seeming very satisfied and content. Not like the ravenous female she usually was after class. She would just shower and go to bed, and it really bummed me out. I tried talking to her on the second night it happened, but she said she felt fatigued from her cycle. After I was sure that couldn't still be the problem, I tried asking her again if something was going on. She didn't give me any answer. She just did me a special favor she didn't usually do. I couldn't argue at that time. Since I wasn't getting anywhere by asking her directly, I decided to go to the yoga class a bit before it was over. Through the glass window, I saw him helping her stretch. I didn't realize he was allowed to touch my wife. I never would have wanted her to join this class. Plus, I was starting to recall her saying that she was only signing up for the meditation part of it. When she got home, I wasn't sure what to say or do. I eventually asked her if yoga class was becoming easier the longer she did it. She said yes, of course. I asked her if the instructor ever had to help her with the moves. She looked at me a little curiously but said no. She asked if I'd be jealous. I was starting to get ticked off now. She lied and then wanted me to be jealous. I told her I would be disappointed if another man gave her special attention or got to feel her body even a little bit. She looked down and shrugged, quietly saying I didn't need to worry about it. I was not convinced. The next day, I left work a little early again and acted like I was on the phone outside the yoga class, but my phone camera was on and recording through the window. He wasn't touching her, but they were close for a room of 25 people. When everyone was dismissed, the camera recorded them going into the back room alone. Someone held the door open for me and I snuck into the empty studio. I went into the hallway, still recording, and stood by the closed office door until I heard moaning. I opened the door, filming a few humps before the yelling started. My wife was in complete shock. The yoga instructor was furious, telling me to get out. It was employees only and they were closed. I told him my wife wasn't an employee and her legs were obviously open. He clarified that I was her husband like a dumbass, all while I was still recording. He couldn't physically push me out and he was the one in trouble. He put his hands up and said he didn't know she was married and all he wanted was for us to leave because the business was closed. I filmed my walk out, waiting for my wife to follow. She came out 1 minute after me, looking like her life was over. She asked me if I could turn off the camera and we could talk. I told her there was nothing she could say to make this better. I had her on camera having an affair, so she wasn't going to get anything out of our divorce and he was going out of business. She started sobbing in the parking lot and people stopped to watch. She pleaded with me not to share the video. I told her I was definitely going to and I sat in my car with it locked to post it on my pages and directly on the business reviews page. By the time I drove home, there was a buzz of activity and reactions. People commented, saying they understood his temptation and how bad this was going to be for him. Some girls claimed he looked at them funny too. Whether or not he did, at least they got a little attention out of this claim. The divorce went extremely well for me and all my wife could do was try to lay low. I know she no longer had a yoga class to go to and last I heard she moved in with a friend of hers. I guess after I exposed his nasty business, AP lost all feelings for her. I hope he had a life backup plan like I should have had. I'm a little bitter, but I'm actually doing fine. I'm glad I had all the opportunities and hunches I needed to catch her in the act and file in court. I'm glad she didn't try to come back home, except when she got permission to get her stuff. She accepted the shameful truth and didn't try to beg for forgiveness beyond our conversation in front of the yoga place. She had to lay really low for a while and I think she sold her stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Don't feel bad for her though. She wasn't thinking about how much she loved me or how much trust one had in her that she was throwing away. Maybe that's why it was easier for me to let her go without feeling too bad. Thank goodness I have not started another serious relationship. I've been working and enjoying my time off work. I don't pressure myself for anything and I feel peaceful. I'm glad custody wasn't an issue and that I could display her actions for everyone to see. If you're going through something that just isn't right with your spouse, follow your gut, gather evidence, and stay strong. If you're scared, Take the time to get to know yourself by journaling and thinking about things you want to spend your time doing. That's the best advice I can offer. P. I am so sorry your wife thought it was okay to let a slimy yoga instructor put his hands where they don't belong. That being anywhere on her person. Respect and honesty are so important in a marriage or union, and she would have known that if she was mature enough for a serious relationship. The fact that it was his profession isn't really an excuse. It's just asking for trouble or encouraging feelings to develop. When you have this type of job, you have to be careful how you handle the responsibility that it entails. People should be able to trust the business as a safe space where they can be comfortable, and he failed to provide that by doing what he did. Your wife made a very bad choice to give up everything she had for a stranger that didn't and wasn't meant to stay in her life. What a pathetic thing to do. Anyways, let's get into our second story for today. My wife had a full-time job working as a barista. She was as passionate about it as any chef or barista would be. She quickly became branch manager and was responsible for hiring and firing staff. She would come home and talk about her coworkers per the mandate of any wife, I think. She probably didn't think I'd notice that she started talking about one person way more often than the others. She added other names to her stories, but I started to have a hunch that she liked this one employee more than the others. I was minding my own business at work one day when my friend texted me with an urgent message. It was a video he filmed himself 1 minute ago of two people caught having sex in the back of a coffee shop. At first, I didn't know he just filmed it himself. I thought it was forwarded. I knew he worked at the same coffee shop as my wife though. Before I watched it, I was gonna send it to my wife as a joke warning for her to not do anything so stupid. I watched it first though, and I could not believe my eyes. It was my wife on the video. You could clearly see her face and her dark curly hair. She only took 2 seconds to pull up her pants, but she was 4 seconds too late. They just lost their jobs, and she certainly just lost her husband. My friend messaged me again saying he didn't share it online or anything because he felt like it was my right. He said my wife was still working pretending everything was going to be fine and the video wouldn't be brought to light. I thanked him profusely even though I was in tears. I drove to the coffee shop forcing myself to look calm and normal. My wife greeted me kindly, although she definitely seemed nervous. She took my order and made my drink. When she handed it to me smiling, I took off the lid and threw it on her. I said that's for cheating on me and walked out. Then I told my friend to post the video on social media. I shared it on my platforms and tagged anyone my wife knew. She was completely ashamed and fired. Then she faced charges for indecency and at least one other thing, I think. She had to go to court where she was ordered to do community service and pay a fine. After that, she had to go to court for our divorce where her infidelity was brought up again. She was tired of it and became irritated that she was facing so many consequences for sleeping with a man at work. After she moved in with AP, they split the pricey rent for 1 month, then he told her he couldn't afford it and left to live with his mom. My wife didn't have the help she needed to get all her belongings out of the place before she was evicted and locked out. She trusted the wrong guy and made the wrong choice. I was so disappointed but proud of myself for following through with the divorce. She tried apologizing, but I told her I could only be married to someone I trusted. I heard her cry really hard only once, and I'm glad I didn't hear it anymore because I might have tried to forgive her. Hope you did really well. No one should have to cope with infidelity, but when they must, I hope they handle it like you did. You followed through with what seemed like the harder choice because in your heart you knew you couldn't forgive or forget your wife's greatest shame. You have every right to be happy and fully trusting of your spouse by communicating honestly and growing close for years. Keeping a journal is a great thing for anyone to do because it helps anyone get in touch with their emotions and practice expression. Your wife probably had no idea she was only proving herself immature and selfish until she grows up and understands how important it is for her sake and her husband's that she remains loyal and honest. She doesn't deserve to have a relationship with anyone. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's